What's up you guys, Sasha here, and today I want to talk about the difference between the way credit cards work in the US and the way they work in the UK. Now we naturally presume that credit cards are credit cards, they're exactly the same everywhere in every single country, but the truth is they work in quite different ways depending on which country you actually get one issued in. Now there are a lot of similarities, before we get into the big differences. The credit limits are roughly similar and the way they work is roughly similar. The APRs that you're going to get, again, are roughly similar. The sort of 18.9, 19.9% bracket is very, very common in both countries. The way that they operate with minimum payment and the way those payments are apportioned, again, there's a lot of similarities there. But there's a few really big differences in how they work. Whether you live in one country and visit the other, whether you travel between the two frequently, or even if you don't, if you're just interested in some of the underpinning differences between the way credit cards work across the pond, I'm going to go through some of the biggest ones in this video. Now both countries have had new legislation come in just over 10 years ago which has modernized and massively upgraded the older legislation that governed credit cards and other lending products. In the US that's the Card Act 2009, which was a massive new piece of legislation under President Obama, and in the UK it is the Consumer Credit Act 2006, which was a revision and an upgrade of the previous 1974 version but without actually replacing it. The big reason I wanted to put this video together is because I get asked a lot of questions by people who live in the US and have found out content about UK credit cards, or people who live in the UK and watch YouTube videos about US credit cards, and people get confused, people begin mixing things up, so let's just clear them up and explain the differences. So first off, let's talk about the credit score. This is probably the biggest one that people will know about, people will notice, and in the US, the credit score is a huge deal. The FICO score is something that everyone talks about, everyone knows it. A lot of people will know what their FICO score is. A lot of people will actively go and monitor it, they will work on ways to improve it, and there's a lot of published materials which will actively tell you how you can improve it. The score is actively used by banks and credit card companies to determine eligibility for products. So if you have a score above a certain level, you will qualify for a bunch of these products over here, and if it's below a different level, you will definitely not qualify for some other ones over there. It is very specific, there's only one version of it and everyone uses this same score across the entire country. In the UK, the picture is vastly different. There is no central score. There are 3 different credit reference agencies which have their own scores, but none of them are actually worth anything because not a single bank or credit card company actually uses these in their decisioning. In the UK, every single bank and every single credit card company will have their own scorecard which will produce their own internal score, which you will never be able to find out, which you will never be able to see, and these will vary quite considerably from bank to bank, from credit card company to credit card company. So if you are eligible for a premium credit card with one provider, you may not qualify for a less premium credit card with another, and that happens quite a lot. This is both good and bad. It means that if you have a low score with one provider but you have a better score with another, you may qualify for that provider because they understand your particular type of customer better. They've dealt with people like you before, their product is designed potentially for people more like you than the other one. In the US, you're a bit more restricted in the sense that if your FICO score is low, you are going to be prohibited from getting access to premium products from lower rate products. But over time, you'll be able to improve that score, you'll be able to qualify for better products, you can manage and monitor it, and there's a lot of stuff that will help you improve it with very specific guidance, which is not the same in the UK. So I can't tell which country is better, they're just quite different in the way they approach credit scores. At number 2, I have something that is relatively minor and it's not a big deal, but it really throws some people when they travel from one country to another, and that is the way that we actually use the credit cards to make purchases. In the UK, credit cards use chip and pin pretty much universally. In fact, in the last 10 to 15 years, the system has become so popular that I can't remember the last time I saw somebody actually signing unless they are using a foreign credit card. People in the US have had some chip and pin integration in different parts and different shops, but most of the purchases, especially on credit cards, are done using chip and signature. Now, chip and pin is more prevalent in the US using debit cards, but credit cards still follow protocols where almost all transactions are using a signature. It does mean that if you go to a restaurant, you're able to add tip using a pen just before you sign, which is convenient because not all chip and pin machines allow you to do it, and if you don't have the right cash, that might be a problem. I've lived in both the United States and the UK, and I travel frequently between the two countries, and when I I've traveled from the US to the UK and tried to use my US credit card to pay for something in the UK, it can be quite amusing when you have somebody younger working in a shop who has literally never seen somebody have to sign a piece of paper. They do get pretty confused when the payment screen says that a signature is required, and most of the time they'll ask somebody a bit older who has seen it happen before come and help them. And number 3, I have a practice that is quite common in the UK that is actually banned in the US and has been banned for some time, and that is repricing of credit cards. Now, quite frequently, if you have a credit card and you have a balance, in the UK, credit card companies will try to milk you for every single penny that they can on that balance. What they will do is they will go and send you a letter saying, hey, we have looked at your profile and we have decided that you are a higher risk than we would like you to be. Therefore, we're going to increase your interest by 3%, by 5%, sometimes as much as 9%. You can obviously opt out, but then your credit card gets closed, and if you want to continue using it, you have to accept the increase. Almost everybody, in fact about 90 to 92% of people in these situations accept the rate increase and continue using the credit card and begin paying a considerably higher level of interest as a result. In the US, this does not happen because it is illegal. The Card Act specifically bans pretty much every single instance of increasing people's rates. There are some specific circumstances where it is allowed to go and increase people's interest rates, but they are quite rare, and generally speaking, if your interest rate does increase, it will increase on new purchases only. It won't increase on the balance that you've already built up, which is the case in the UK. Another practice that exists in the UK that is banned in the US is sneaky over-limit fees. Now, I've been saying for quite some time that some of this stuff really needs to get addressed, and it hasn't been for years and years and years, and the FCA just can't be bothered to actually do stuff that is the right thing for the consumer. And this is the sort of case when a credit card company will go and charge you over limit fees because they have allowed you to go over limit, or worse still, because they have taken you over limit by charging you some other fees and interest. In the UK, the maximum fee that you can charge for somebody going over limit is £12. So unsurprisingly, pretty much every single credit card in the UK will charge you the £12 fee. Pretty much every credit card company in the UK will willfully allow you to go over limit. The argument is it is great for the consumer. It avoids the embarrassment of your credit card being rejected when you're trying to pay for something in a shop or trying to pay for your restaurant meal or whatever it is. And that is the argument they've been using for decades to try to justify this practice. The consumer, they say, effectively requests to go over limit by making the transaction, and they should be aware at all times what their credit card balance is. Now, in the US, they've taken a better approach, and they've basically said two things. The first thing is you are not allowed to take people over limit unless they expressly authorize and ask for you to allow them to do so. So in the US, if you have a credit card and you expressly want to allow yourself to go over limit and be charged the fees, you have to go and sign a separate piece of paper. Now, the second part is the part where the credit card company can actually take you over limit themselves and then charge you the over limit fee for the privilege of doing so. This frequently happens when you're having a statement generated. Sometimes it will happen at other points in the month, like say if you withdraw some cash or do a balance transfer, something like that that incurs fees. Basically what will happen is on your statement date, for example, they will calculate all the interest due for that month. They will calculate any other fees that are due. They will add them to your balance. And if that interest and those fees take you over your limit, they will go and help themselves to an extra £12 over limit fee. Bang, they've got you. In the US, this exact practice is banned. If the credit card company charges you any fees or interests that take you over your limit, they cannot charge you an over limit fee because essentially they've done it. They've added those charges. It is on them. It is not your fault. In the US, the fees for this are a little bit higher. It is not quite as simple as it is in the UK. You're allowed to charge up to $28 for the first offense, and if you go 2 or more payments behind, you can charge up to $39. In practice, most credit card companies will charge something like $25 and $35 for those two situations, so it's quite a bit higher than it is in the UK, so you don't really want to end up in that situation, but they don't charge you the sneaky versions of these fees at the same time. While we're in the subject of fees, let's cover number 5, which is the obsession in the US with various kind of account fees, account management fees, annual account fees, any kind of fees that they can strap onto the account that you're going to have to pay every single month or every single year. In the UK, this is extremely rare. Typically, only super premium credit cards that offer you huge amounts of perks, so some of the charge cards will charge you a fee. In the US, this number is a lot higher. The official statistic is that about 30 to 35% of all credit cards have some form of an annual management fee, and there are other credit cards that charge you other types of fees, like say an application fee or other named fees that aren't an annual management fee on top of that. So generally speaking, depending on which statistic you trust, something like 40 to 50% of all credit cards in the US have this type of fee attached to them. Certainly if you have a credit card that gives you any kind of perks, if it gives you cash back, if it gives you some kind of access to lounges, any other benefits like that, those will typically have a fee associated with them to try to offset some of the cost of those perks. The fees charged for credit cards in the US are also generally a little higher. So in the UK, a really popular credit card that has a fee is the Amex cashback credit card. And the fee for that has varied over time, but it's always around the £20–25 per year mark. In the US, fees generally start from something like $69 or $89, and fees of $100 or higher are not unusual. And a lot of credit cards will be charging something in that area. And subprime credit cards in the US have had a really bad rap for charging a huge amount of fees in the past, and although the Card Act has rectified and fixed some of that, it is still a really bad part of the market. In the UK, near-prime credit cards will typically not charge any fees. There was only one credit card who charged some fees for a period of time, but generally speaking, almost all of these credit cards are fee-free, whereas in the US, the practice is very much to charge a lot of fees at application and then other fees on an ongoing basis. The Card Act has limited that to 25% of the credit limit that you can charge up front when the card is first issued, or up to 50% if that amount is financed. So if it's not due the very moment you apply, but you can spread it over say a 6-month period, then it can be higher. But that's still a huge amount. If you think about it, if you get a $500 limit, let's say, they can charge you technically up to $250 worth of fees, and they'll call them different names, or there'll be an application fee, there'll be some kind of account management fee, etc. That is still a huge amount of money charged just for the privilege of giving you some form of credit. Moving on to add-ons, this is another area where the UK is slightly ahead of its US counterparts, and in the UK we have had several of these practices that have been rife and very popular something like 20 years ago, completely banned and outlawed. So the most commonly known one is the PPI scandal. Almost every single credit card out there was charging people for payment protection insurance, and generally speaking that insurance was completely worthless. People were sold it without even realizing they were paying for it, and it was quite expensive. Commonly you'll be paying something like 60, 70, 80p per £100 per month, per £100 of balance that is. And that's quite a lot of money if you think about how long people would carry these balances for and continue paying those fees for. In the US this is actually quite a common thing. There's a lot of add-ons that you can buy and that are quite commonly sold to people who have credit cards, and these add-ons are things like having identity protection, having some kind of debt protection, being able to monitor your credit score. All of those things are generally add-ons, and many of them you have to pay for. In the UK, if you do have something like credit monitoring or something else like that, generally speaking it's going to be a free part of your account. Number 7, I have something that exists in the UK, doesn't exist in the US, and that's where the US is a lot better, and that is acquisition risk-based pricing. So in the UK, if you apply for a credit card and it is advertised as 18.9% APR, 51% of people or more have to get the 18.9% price point. That means 49% of people could technically be getting a much higher rate, depending on what the credit card company decides. In many cases, that rate will be quite a lot higher. Sometimes you'll be paying 20.9, 22.9, sometimes the rate can be even higher than that. Especially for near-prime credit cards, this can get really bad. So you can apply for a credit card that is marketed to you at 25.9% or 27.9%, and if you don't qualify for that top half, they might offer you the same exact credit card but charge you 49.9% instead. In the US, this practice is outlawed. It is banned because it is basically a bait and switch scheme, and that doesn't make it a particularly good thing to do. When you apply for a credit card, there'll be a table shown to you on the US credit card websites which will show you what the APR and the interest rates you're going to get if you are accepted. In the UK, the same tables do exist, but they'll typically either show you the interest rates that are associated with the advertised rate, or they'll only show you a list of different potential ones you can get without you being able to actually know what the rate applicable to you is until you go ahead and apply. If anybody by any chance from the Office of Fair Trading or the FCA is watching this, maybe you guys should do something about it. That's literally your job, to protect people from stuff like bait and switch. Just saying. Last on my list of the big difference between the way credit cards work in the US and the way they work in the UK is interchange. Interchange is the fee that is charged to every single shop for processing a transaction. Now historically, interchange rates have been quite high. This is the reason why sometimes when you pay with a credit card in some parts of the world, they will tell you that they have to add a little bit to the amount because it will cost them an amount of money to process it. That amount of money is the interchange. In the US, the interchange rates at the moment are somewhere between about 1.5% and between 2.3% for Discover, up to 2.6% for MasterCard. I think that's about right. And depending on which particular type of credit card you have, whether it's MasterCard World or some other form of MasterCard, Visa, etc. So that's quite a lot of money. Every single time you buy something from a shop, that portion of the purchase goes to the Visas, the MasterCards, the American Expresses, Discovers, Diners Club, whatever it is, and then a portion of that gets shared with the actual issuer. Now, American Express is a little bit different in this to MasterCard and Visa in that they are an issuer and a scheme in their own right. So generally speaking, that means their regulation in both the UK and the United States is slightly different because they are a four-party scheme versus a three-party scheme. Anyway, I don't need to get into the details. What that means is they're allowed to charge more. And that means that whenever you're paying with an American Express, the retailer will be paying a larger amount of the amount you've just paid over to the scheme. So if you like the retailer and want to be nice to them and you have absolutely not a care in the world which credit card you use, don't use your American Express because it will cost the retailer more. If you're getting lots of points and lots of perks and lots of benefits and you don't care, go and use your American Express. It's up to you. Now in the UK, the situation is quite a bit different. The vast majority of credit cards have an upper cap of 0.3% for the amount of interchange they can charge because of some EU legislation that came in several years ago. Now American Express is not affected by this, and that means that they charge considerably more. They charge similar amounts to what they charge in the US, and this is the reason why if you have an American Express card, a lot of shops simply won't accept it. A different piece of legislation in the UK has banned the practice of charging fees when you're trying to pay for something using a credit card, and that means retailers can't charge you more for using American Express. So what they do is they just don't allow you to use it full stop. They say we don't accept them because it costs them that much more money. I hope you liked it, guys. If you did, please make sure you smash that like button. It is incredibly important for the growth of this channel so that we can reach more people more quickly. If you like this kind of content, if you like talking about personal finance products and making money online and making more of the money that you do have, make sure you subscribe to this channel. That's exactly what I talk about 3 times a week on a Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Hit that bell so you get notifications every time one of my videos comes out. I'll see you guys later.